I got your emails. I got the phone calls, the texts, the notes you left on YouTube, and I'm back. I'm back. Let's start the show, Pleasantville, tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, a quick production note. Either next week or the week after, we're still trying to decide. We're going to have an award ceremony for 2023. Now, I know what you're thinking. I'm a shoo-in. Granted, four-time champion. Mike was saying it backstage. I know, Mike, I see you. All right. But you can vote along with us. I don't know if your votes will count. Chris is laughing because he doesn't believe in democracy. But coming up next week or 2 weeks after the award ceremony, will people be lit? Probably. Are they lit now? Absolutely. But tonight is Pleasantville. We are in the 90s, specifically 1998. Okay. Reese Witherspoon, Tobey Maguire. Why did I pick this movie? Well, okay. We did the 80s. The 80s was about rebellion, doing your own thing. The 90s has to be about what? Deconstruction. Okay. Deconstruction of horror, deconstruction of comedy, deconstruction of coming of age, right? You have Dazed and Confused. You have early in the decade. You have this one later in the decade. So let's talk about it. I'm not alone, though. Let's bring in my number one hater. Here he is right here. I see him fuming. Mike, what's going on, sir?
Number one hater?
I thought that's what you said backstage. Was I wrong?
I am no hater of you.
Oh.
I'm a fan's favorite fan of your hater's favorite hater. I think every fan has hate inside of them. Now the question is, do I hate this movie? We'll find out. But I'm welcome. I'm thanks to be here. The 80s is the greatest decade of all time. The 90s not too shabby, so I'm excited to talk about the 90s. So
your anger makes you strong and gives you focus, as the emperor would say. Let's bring up the emperor next. If I can get this little pop-up off my screen. Here he is right here, the executive consultant. Sir, how are you doing?
I am doing very pleasantly, I'll say.
Now, recently, my schedule changed at work, and to give Chris credit, he changed the whole scheduling of the show, and I have to give him credit. And all he asked in return was that I killed all the trade corporation on Mustafar, and that's what I did for him. Okay, Chris, you asked me to do that. You asked me to wipe them out, all of them, show no mercy. Now, last but not least, you've been asking about her almost as much as you've been asking about me, and here she is tonight. It's E Boogie. E, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, very relaxed, having a nice little vacay, enjoying it.
Now, currently you're in Paris. Vic is also there because he's wealthy. How are you enjoying it?
So I'm not in Paris, I'm in Pleasantville.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah, burger shop.
Great background, by the way. More on that later. Hint, hint, hint. Let's get into the summary of this movie. My pick, as I said again. Basically, it's about two teenagers of the then modern era, 1998, who, because one has a love of Pleasantville and all things nostalgic, and one is a very then current modern girl, in a tussle, they get sucked into the world of Pleasantville, a 1950 sitcom, by way of a remote that a repairman gave them once they smashed the original to the TV. They then have to try and keep things as close as possible to the original timeline of the show, but of course things happen and they end up changing that world, and we will now argue for the better or worse in Pleasantville. Who would like to go first? Any best of, worst of, any favorite characters, any worst characters?
ladies first. We haven't had E Boogie here in a minute, so I just apropos for her to go first, if that's okay with you, E Boogie.
Totally. Yeah, so glad that you picked this movie. Just definitely nostalgic for me. I've seen this movie a gajillion times. I don't even know like what drew me to this movie as a youngin', but yeah, very nostalgic. Felt good to see some of my favorite actors and notable supporting actors fill the cast. It was a ride. I really enjoyed it. And most notably, I guess I would say, like, I was a TV kid. I've watched a lot of TV, and I feel like maybe that's the thing that kind of drew me in. Like, the idea and kind of surrealism of getting sucked into my favorite TV program is fun in itself as a child. But then, as a Black person, though, I don't think I would go back to the 50s if I had the choice. Obviously, they didn't, but just something to note there. I do love kind of the message behind this movie, and I think we'll delve deeper into that later. But for me, obviously Reese Witherspoon, definitely my favorite. I love all of her other work though, so I feel like that might have tainted and given me some bias toward her.
Mike or Chris, you want to jump in here and say what you thought about the movie, initial thoughts?
I'll go because he likes to go last. He can try to piggyback and pick on people because he's a big old bully. He ain't scaring nobody with his little self. Anywho, good movie. I'm with you. I'm a TV guy myself. I'm gonna pick on you though, James, because you got on Executive Consultant last month about the kind of movie he picked. You picked a '90s movie that actually was a '50s movie.
I'm glad that you said that. I have a defense for that. Go ahead, make the case.
I just did that just because I know you brought it up last month. That's the reason why I did it. But as E Boogie said, this cast. I mean, William H Macy. If I don't care what anybody say, if you don't watch Shameless, you don't know nothing about this man's acting chops. Okay, but for me, I gotta say, always had one of my favorite people since I was a little wee kid to a duck. Don Knotts in this movie. Once I saw him, I just fell in love with it at that point, and what his involvement was going to be in this movie. Always been a big fan of him. Jeff Daniels is in this movie. I mean, J.T. Walsh. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. This is Tobey Maguire's something they had to do for him after Spider-Man, and the question was, did it work? Did it work at the box office? Did it work, all together? But I'm here for this. I'm not sure if this was. I think this was after Spider-Man.
Before.
It was before Spider-Man? Okay, this what maybe gave him Spider-Man then. Perhaps was the success of this movie. But I have a lot of problems with this film because this panel, excluding E Boogie, who hasn't been here for a while, always got something to pick on. So I'm going to hold my resolve right now, and I'm going to pick on some things in this movie because it was a big-ass horn fest is what this movie was about, being horny. And only because I'm a horny adult, as I was a horny kid and a horny teenager, I'm going to let it slide. But this is one horny-ass movie. I digress.
Mike, I appreciate your honesty and candor. I could feel your hate radiating, and I loved every moment of it. Now, to the person who created hate itself, Chris, what do you have to say about this movie?
You just called that man the devil.
No.
It's so interesting. I didn't say the father of lies. I said the person who created hate.
It's so interesting that you mentioned the word devil because, I saw this movie and I was like, you know what? I was interested. I didn't know anything about Pleasantville when you mentioned it. I never even heard of the movie Pleasantville before you mentioned it. And then I researched and I looked it up. I said, hey, I am interested, Vic. Vic, let me tell you why I'm interested. I called the guy up. I was like, Vic, I'm interested. You know what I'm saying? Because you always talk about sequels. And I said, hey, you know what? I didn't know that the movie Stay Tuned had a sequel, right? But then I watched it. I'm like, well, they didn't have any of these people in it, right? They didn't have any of these people in it. And who could forget this scene in the movie Stay Tuned? And I was looking for it. I was like, where is my homage? You know what I'm saying? But but this movie was bigger. It was broader. It was badder. They even had a bigger remote. Don Knotts they brought in to play the devil this time. I have to say that was my favorite scene. Now let's talk about my least favorite scene. This movie was 2 hours and 4 minutes. Right? If I were to look at everybody's pick, and I didn't know what everybody picked, I would say automatically this is James's pick. Why? Because he does not ever be nice to me, right? I've known this guy for about 25, 26 years. He's never been nice to me. Let me tell you why I know he's never been nice to me. Because he knows if I'm not going to like a movie, he wants to make sure I suffer for as long as possible. 2 hours and 4 minutes of me suffering as long as possible. I said, why would he pick this movie? This movie doesn't represent the 90s. This movie doesn't show anything good in the 90s. It's showing the 50s. Hey, happy days. No, it's showing that I don't want to be a part of that time. Why did he pick that? Then I saw or heard a line where these two idiots were in the car and they were talking to Peter Parker and some other chick. And they were like, you go hang out with your colors. And I said, bingo. That's why his ass picked this movie. That's why he's making me suffer. Thank you, James. Thank you. That has no bearing on what I'm going to do as far as a thumbs up or a thumbs down or how much I enjoy the movie. I'm just giving you my best of and my worst of. Now I can hear yours.
Somebody could have said, "Get on the bus."
Listen, I love the hate, and much like Mace Windu, I reflected back to you with my lightsaber. Now, Chris lied about one thing, though. I will say that, and he said that he's known me only for 26 years. Chris, you know we've been through countless sequels and reboots together. Okay, now, did I complain when we were in Cuba and you deflected that bullet and hit me in my spine and I lost the use of my legs? No. Did I complain when we were on the plane and then you crumpled it up and almost killed me and my boy Logan? No. Did I complain when I was in New York trying to save one of my first students and you tried to destroy the whole house and bring the train through the street? No, I didn't complain. In fact, I came there to save you. Did you save me when that same student years later in another reboot blew me up? No, you just smiled and you took her away. So really, you owe me a bunch of 2-hour movies. That's all I'm saying.
All those are your fault. All those are your fault.
Those were the writers.
The bullet on that island, you knew what it was. I told you what it was. I told you from the day I met you. When I find him, I'm going to kill him. That's exactly what I said. Okay, and when I do, I move the fucking quarter. That's what I did.
Hey, and I helped you. All right, here's what I'm saying about Pleasantville, okay? Shout out to Mike for his hate and Chris for his hate. They've been consistent throughout. And this is why I have 4 championship titles.
I am always on your side. I'm offensive. I'm offended.
Come back from Paris, bring me my bill. I know you love Kanye, but come back from Paris. Now, this is what I'm saying, okay? Now, when Chris picked Clue to go to that accusation, okay, that movie was nothing but a purely 1950s movie. Had nothing to do with the 80s. This movie, even though they're in the 1950s, they never stopped being 1990s kids. The themes in this movie about deconstruction, as I started it off the show with, are throughout this movie. So even though they are transplants, you never think of them as 1950s kids. Hence why they are so different from the kids in that neighborhood, that world of Pleasantville. When they know right, even though they're teenagers themselves and in their own modern times, they don't have their lives together, right? Somehow they manage to change the lives of not only the children, but the adults, right? That's a notion from the 1990s. They're able to fill up the library with all these books because somehow Bud, Tobey Maguire's character, right? He knows all these stories and he's able to change the world whatsoever. The fact that this girl, even though that she showed no interest in the real world, she's going to go to college in this make-believe world. Yes, it's a happy ending, but that's a notion of the 1990s, that things could work out happily ever after, right? These are tropes. These are the beginnings of it. And you could say that it started earlier in the decade, talking about Hollywood film, right? Arguably in the 80s, right? But in the 90s, we're entering into that childhood era. You could say that we're in the early adulthood now with these message theme movies. That's why I picked this movie. I like artsy films. E and I share that love. E, thank you for backing me up, okay? Chris hates them. Did I pick it because I knew he hated them and I loved it? Yes. It's 2 birds with 1 stone. It's 2 birds with 1 stone, okay? The music in this movie, callback, great. The beautiful cinematography in this movie, it's great. The messaging, even though in our modern times we consider ham-fisted, at the time that it was made, it was considered apropos. By who? The so-called larger audience. Not to every community, no, because we haven't had the benefit of not seeing things, right? But for them, it was probably revolutionary, and we have to view a movie within the times that it was made, not now. As we talked backstage about last week's film, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Yeah, we can. No. I'm gonna give it credit because I wasn't able to be on that show. Because even though today we look at it through a modern lens, at the time that was almost timid or regular. Okay, you have to look at the 80s in its entirety, right, and see the type of teen films that were coming out. So I can't fault it for some things that I might fault it for that they try to come out with the movie today. So for all those reasons, I picked it. Now, do I have a favorite character? Yes, they're right there behind E. Bill Johnson. You have to give it up to Jeff Daniels' portrayal of this character. Because the minute that Bud doesn't make those cheeseburgers, as he says, right? And he has that first initial thought of, oh, yeah, I could do that. You know, after he's broken out of that stint of just waxing the countertop, right? He continues to have, even without Bud, all those original thoughts. And you see in him more than any other character in that movie an actual growth and maturity. And even at the end of the movie, if you look at how he's dressed versus how all the other adults are dressed, he's the only one that would arguably look like they are in the late 50s, early 60s, whereas everyone else is still in the early to mid 50s. And it shows that he's ahead of the game. And I love this portrayal because it's so progressive for that film, right? And yet his acting is so subdued. He's so vulnerable in it. And it's a beautiful display of acting and character growth and writing for that character. I mentioned the movie, I mentioned the cinematography, but I have to give MVP to Jeff Daniels, Bill Johnson.
I guess I should dive in.
Whoever wants.
Yeah, I thought something else was going to happen here. So as Mike unmuted himself just to clear his throat.
I'm sorry, I didn't even do that. I'm sorry.
Well, I do want to add to that. Yes, Jeff Daniels was amazing. I really want to add. I'm not sure Bud's mom. I don't remember the actors. The actions.
Joan Allen from The Notebook.
Yes, the cunty snobby mom from The Notebook.
He's trash. He is trash.
She was gripping. Okay. Her self-discovery and kind of just exploration and journey to discovering herself and just really forming her own identity separate from what TV had portrayed her character as. It was very, very beautiful to see. And it was not lost on me that in this movie, at least two of the instances that kind of drove progress and knowledge forward in the city was her learning to masturbate and the daughter going to Whispering Lane or whatever.
Lookout Point.
Thank you. Lookout Point. Lover's Lane. Whatever. I like whispers. Point being, I was very impressed with kind of them lacing that in, which also felt very 90s. It's like I don't know what wave, but it's like women
masturbating in the 50s.
It's like the
no, but I'm saying it's women. It's women's empowerment movement. You don't see that in earlier decades.
It was much more difficult to do it back then.
All right. POV.
With all the dusting and baking, you just couldn't find time. But that also felt very 90s, and just kind of every step that people were taking to just like further their knowledge, to further learn about the world and the world outside of Pleasentville and being pleasant and just kind of exploring their emotions and other people's perspectives. Like, it just was a really brilliantly told message for that to me. And I would say this movie had some like very formative messaging for me as well, as early as I saw it. And you guys might know me well enough to know that I'm a little like activist or whatever. And I really feel passionate about a lot of these things, and just gaining knowledge and being empathetic to other people and learning about yourself, emotional intelligence, all of these things that were themes interwoven within this film. That's what I got.
You made all my points for me about this being a horny ball movie, because you get your slutty character, okay, Reese Witherspoon, which true story, by the way, can't make this up, drove school bus for a while in the summer. Her and Ryan Philippe was married. They have their house in Middletown, Delaware. I used to pick up her daughter and pick her to school. And the year, they gave me like $500 for, picking the daughter up. They always, tip very well. When I lost their route in my fourth year, I was mad. Like, that's $500 every summer. Give my money back. But in this movie, and I'm a big Reese Witherspoon guy myself, coming from my wife's a big fan of hers. From all the Legally Blonde things, Sweet Home Alabama. I'm a fan of her first movie to me, Cruel Intentions, and I thought she brought Cruel Intentions into this movie, being a horny toad. Okay, she that was good about the progressing of her character. Like, I'm no longer that slut's getting old, because she came in and like Paul Walker's like, what's this? And everybody's watching, and next thing you know, she's like, Mom, you don't need Dad. Just go in the bathroom. And Dad's in there trying to sleep. Like, oh my, like this whole movie. I can't see what you're saying, Jim, as far as the progression of it being so 90s, because all I kept seeing visually was so 50s, right? And being a child of a parent from the 50s, they wasn't that far back, not progressive, you know, as far as the things, at least to me, the movie was pointing out. But it was cool to see, and I'm with you on this one, Boogie. If I gotta say, along with Don Knotts being just a fan of his character, Joan Allen's character was the biggest part of this movie, along with Jeff Daniels and her crying. I'm not gonna, just her telling the husband, no, I'm not gonna do that. That's not what I'm gonna do. You're gonna, he's like, you're gonna be sitting here at 6 o'clock. There's gonna be food. There's gonna be this. She's like, no, it's not. You know what I mean? But she was did she sleep with Jeffrey Daniels? I don't know. They look like they did. Okay, he painted her naked. If I'm painting a chick naked, you best believe I'm gonna hit. So, the movie in itself, well, what to see. Let executive consultant get his little chops in there.
The end of beginning, the numero uno, the chances of winning. I do it again. Follow no other, I'm setting these trends, consulting.
You know, if it's okay, if I can just, you know, be a little overbearing, just a little bit overbearing. I want to express some things in this movie that might be a little controversial and might upset a few people. And I don't mean to. I apologize for my views ahead of time. Why the hell did y'all make me watch this movie? I don't understand. This movie was not progressive at all. I'm listening to y'all say it was progressive and how progressive it was, but I don't see it. What I see is Spider-Man bringing Gwen Stacy over to Pleasantville and just totally ruin a city that had nothing wrong with it. Did it ever occur to everybody that there was nothing really wrong with the city and they made it worse? Because I believe that. I felt the mirror. It was a pleasant town. There was no rain. Now they're all happy because it's rain. Why you be happy because it's rain? Everything was going fine without the rain. You had happy homes. People were going to school. Nobody was thinking about. As a father, I would love my children not thinking about sex. This was all a good time. Let me tell you who the best character in this movie was, because it's not all hate. There was a character I liked in this movie.
I know who you're gonna say.
This guy right here.
Yes, I thought I was gonna go with Mr. Walsh, the town guy.
No, it was that guy right there, because I felt like he got screwed the most out of anybody in this movie. He did nothing wrong.
He lost his wife.
But he did nothing wrong. What did he do wrong?
He did nothing.
He did nothing. Truth be told, listen to me. As a married man, what he was doing is why she was the way she acted. He gave her wife no attention. That's why at the end it was so important when Tom McGuire brought him in the color.
Did she look like she was unhappy before they came in?
Yes, because if you know, you got to look behind.
Let me finish the point of excellence, right? She was making big breakfasts. She was smiling. She was taking care of the kids. She was happy. And then all of a sudden, Spider-Man comes swinging in, and that was way to take advantage. Spider-Man comes in swinging on his little high horse web and freaks up their relationship and freaks up the town. Then you got women going around sleeping with people, and now she's messed up the town, and everything is in chaos. And I get what y'all saying, and it's good to see the progressive thinking in that terms. But realistically speaking, that town was truly pleasant before these people came and effed it all up. Go ahead, E Boogie.
Thank you. That was very kind.
Right, I'm a kind pleasant.
Pleasant isn't good enough.
That's why I'm single. Go ahead.
That's exactly why.
Pleasant isn't good enough. You can't have the truly amazing without the pain, without the sorrow, without the bad. You have to have both in order to be able to appreciate the good. You can't. And I mean, I hear you fully, but free will is beautiful. Spontaneity is beautiful.
I'm gonna go to Spontané.
That's a cute girl's name. Spontané.
No, the game that was the character Brandy played. She was Spontané. Her name was Chardonnay, and she wanted to open up Spontané. The game and TV show.
You're going on a completely different level. All I'm saying is,
take a break.
I see what you're saying, because we're about to go to commercial break, and unfortunately, James' computer glitched completely. He won't be back. But I felt like this guy. Where was the meatloaf? There was no meatloaf. None. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a commercial break. We'll be right back.
Crummy meatloaf.
Make it your damn self.
There's a party tonight at Peter's house. Can I go?
Hello, Tawatha. Do I feel like being bothered with Tawatha? Hello, LaDonna.
Yo, baby, you looking real good.
Step off.
Scandalous. Kick it, Pop.
Okay, so where we're on our way to? The house party. What? The house party.
House party, in case you didn't hear them,
Be like house and shit.
will be the Mike Knox's pick coming up next Thursday, 8:00 p.m. Here's a movie
Next
also
Thursday?
I've never. Yes, it's gonna be next Thursday. We'll talk in a second. I've never seen this movie, so
What?
it'll be interesting to see this movie. Starring.
I'm gonna pull that
Who
man's
plays?
black card in a second. Yo, I swear to God. You about to get your black
Come
card.
over, come over here and take it. Come over here and take it. Come over here.
God, I'm gonna have to. You know, it didn't make it. Might not make it back, but running around town like a in heat. Me and my boys can't be beat. Wherever
As
you
a
go,
child-
we're gonna kick our glass, and we're gonna kick your fucking ass.
As
Come on,
a
I can't wait.
child, I used to hear about that movie all the time to the point where I felt like I didn't need to see it.
It's like
it
Boys
is-
in the Hood. It's like
but
Men's
it's not like
Society.
something-
It's just
It's
one of
not like
those
something
cult
I could
classics.
see and be like, oh, I'm not interested in watching it at all. I just never took the time to go watch it, but I will. I have no problem going to go see it. We're in our final thoughts segment. Jay, go ahead, take it away.
Please repeat everything you said for the past 10 minutes.
Please don't.
No, listen. I don't know.
All I said was
We never
I felt
seen
I,
House
Yeah,
Party.
we're gonna take
We
his
never
black
seen
card,
House
James.
Party.
Oh, you never seen it?
I never
Yeah.
saw
Who's
House
the
Party,
main
but
House
the
Party?
only thing you missed about this movie, I never saw House Party, but the only thing you missed about this movie is I said this was the character I related to the most because I wanted to know where the meatloaf was. All right, go ahead, Jay.
No, I was able to hear when
There was no
Chris
meatloaf.
saying that
There was no meatloaf.
Crummy
so
meatloaf.
as a father, he would want his family to live in that town, and arguably, that starts to something else. Another theme that is brought
My
up in this
children.
movie. Your children. Cycles. If you look at in the 90s when they lived in their neighborhood is the exact layout, just in the 90s configuration that the houses in Pleasantville were in the 1950s, right? They all have cliques, they all have their circles, so nothing's really changed. It's still the same thing, it's just done in a modern way, right? And so again, it's cyclical cycles of self-discovery, growth, and then familiarity. And that's what I think this movie does well. I will defend Reese Witherspoon's character. I don't think that she was ever a slutty girl. I think that she slept around a lot because that's what her and her friends did, right? But we see that when she's separated from that, okay, because she hasn't found herself, she's actually a very academic person, okay?
A slut can be academic.
Yeah, but she called herself that,
But
by
I'm
the way.
saying-
That's why I was.
I'm saying
yeah.
a slut can be academic, but a slut is a slut. That's the primary objective, right? As opposed to her when she doesn't, even though she thinks the guy is cute or dreamy, whatever she called him in the movie, right? She chooses not to go because reading that book that she found more interesting was more pleasing to her, right? The mother, Joan, even though she clearly had a thing for Jeff Daniels' character, Bill, she doesn't initially sleep with him. Yes, I believe in the end they had an affair going. That's why we see both of them on the bench with her, right? But that's not the initial thing. The initial thing is to go to him for comfort because that's what she needs most. And her husband doesn't have that, right? He doesn't even understand that concept.
It's called
And so she goes
adultery.
to him, and what does Bill do? He comforts her. He loves her. He sees her.
It's grounds
right?
for divorce.
Actually- huh?
That's grounds for divorce.
Okay, well, it's a movie, but
That doesn't
I'm just
exist
saying
because
that
of
he wipes away the makeup. He wants to see her, right? And that's why we see, no matter how many times she slept with somebody, Reese Witherspoon's character, she didn't turn into color. She turned into color when she chose to be her true, authentic self, which is, I like to learn. I actually enjoy this. I want to be more than just the girl who sleeps around. It didn't mean that sex is absent in that. It just means that her priorities had shifted. Whereas we see the guy that she slept with, he was still in black and white. He never changed because his priority, that wasn't his true authentic self. He just liked that new thing, right? We also see that from some of the other boys before everybody turned to color, right? Specifically Whitey, who was initially supposed to get those oatmeal
Whitey.
cookies, right?
Color.
It's a little, on the nose, but we see that he was really an ass when given the opportunity. So we get to see people's true colors, no pun intended, throughout the movie. So I just wanted to push back on the notion that she was just a slutty character. But again, we see that whereas in the 80s, women wouldn't be topless in movies, but it was from the POV of the male. What is the male like? Whereas in the 90s, you start to see, well, no, this is what I as a woman like. And again, that's a notion that we didn't see before then. Yeah, there might have been sprinkled throughout cinema, right? But in the 90s is really when you can do whatever you want. You could be whatever you want. And these people exist and they're here. Whereas before they were fighting for it, they were trying to break down the door, they were hiding, depending on the community that you were in, you know what I mean? But in the 90s, you don't really have that anymore. It is the infancy of what we have today, which I said at the beginning of the show, it's more messaging. And hey, I want to tell this story about this subset, this community, you know what I mean? And I can actually get funding. Whereas before, you would have never seen that. Good or bad, whether it's a blockbuster or not, nowadays you can much more readily do that. You could do it on your own phone. And the 90s is the beginning of that. Hence Blair Witch Project. You see all these indie films and everything like that. So New Line Cinema is starting as an indie film company, right? Production company. So that's just what I would say. Obviously, it's a thumbs up for me.
I hate saying and yet it's so fitting sometimes. This movie really had me a little stuck today watching it, because I did still feel that nostalgia for it. It really gave me that feeling that, is it 4 times now? Gave me that feeling that stirred in me as a youth and made me this sassy, fiery person that I am, and just challenging the status quo and challenging authority, and challenging the systems that hope to categorize and box me in. That said, I had problems with this. It was being set in the 50s was a bit on the nose for this, because the 90s just weren't, it was very anti kind of this established, not only aesthetic of old America, MAGA America, if you will, but just this idea that everyone has a role that they have to play, and this is what we do, and we don't
Deviate.
we don't deviate from what that is. This is what it is, straight and narrow. This is what we're going to do. This is how we operate. And this movie really shatters that, and the 90s kind of shattered that, and like we really got to see a very kind of awakening of people, a renaissance of different types of people from different walks of life being represented in media, and just in general people feeling okay to be themselves. I don't know, I probably wouldn't watch this movie again unless prompted in like this sort of scenario. I think it served what it needed to serve in my life at the point that I did watch it those several million times. So I think I'm gonna have to give it a thumbs down. Yeah, the rewatchability is very important to me, and it's just not something I need to ever continue to. It's like not a, I don't know. Its staying power is not giving for me. That's it. One and done.
Like I said, like I don't know about this title he keeps claiming he has, this imaginary title. In my opinion, I would give you the 80s because of the
whoa! I didn't get. Hold on.
I said that when you picked it. I said I would give you the 80s. To me, I give you the 80s. I give you that. The 90s will be won by me because House Party is the greatest black exploitation party movie of all time. But we're talking Pleasentville, and there was nothing pleasant about this movie at all. It's the reason why it bombed at the box office. Okay, did not make its money back. It cost $60 million to make, only made $49 million. But it's an artsy film. And RC films don't always make money. And it was nominated for multiple Oscar awards. I do remember that. I do think a lot of undertone of this movie was missed by the great acting. It was so much good acting between William H. Macy, between Jeff Danes, between Joan Allen, between Tobey Maguire even. For that matter, I think a lot of the messages were misplaced, and I got thrown off watching it today. That whole color thing, I'm like, oh, there's a little racist in here. It's like if you ever watch True Blood, I always tell people True Blood was never about the vampires. It was really about blacks and whites, and they used the vampires as an undertone for blacks, and that's just how the show kept running in that direction. But watching Pleasantville, I just didn't like it. I didn't like it when it came out. I've watched it multiple times. I watched it today. It's extremely long. And if I'm gonna watch a woman masturbate in the tub, can I at least see some tit? Sorry. That's all I'm gonna say about that. Thumbs down for me. 90s or not, I'm gonna be stuck in 90s my whole entire life. So if you're offended, remember that thoughts and opinions that said by Mike Knox belongs to Mike Knox and not everybody belonging to Unpopular Review. There it is. I'm still playing Take That, Take That, Take That. Chris, executive consultant.
This is the line.
I thought the line changed. I don't mean to interrupt you. I thought the line changed a couple movies back.
I watched the movie The Batman last week for the first 30 minutes, and I put it on my Instagram. I said, I'm strengthening my resolve. This is the line of all movies.
You draw it here, it goes this far, no further?
This far, no further. And if I ever meet Matt Reeves, I will make him pay for what he's done.
Batman 2 is going to be great.
Yeah, Lady Gaga. Yeah, poker face. All right, so that being
said, that's the Joker.
I really wanted to like this movie. I did, right? Because I love Stay Tuned. And I was like, a sequel got to be good, right? Got to be good. But there was none of this. There was none of this. And I was also asking, where is the meatloaf? I was looking and there was no meatloaf. And as much as I like this character, he also had one of the dumbest scenes in the movie to me, where his wife did not want to go out there because she was colored, right? Tropic Thunder. She was colored. And Spider-Man came, Peter Parker, came and said, hey, let me help you out with this makeup. And the whole time while this dude's entertaining, he kept just calling her name for like an hour, just calling her name. I'm like, if you don't get your lazy ass up and go to the kitchen and see why she's Tropic Thunder, it bothered me. But where was the meatloaf? I honestly can't tell you how much I enjoyed seeing Tobey Maguire in this movie. I think he did a phenomenal job. Everybody, I think, really did a good job. But I think Tobey Maguire did a phenomenal job, and I understand why he became Spider-Man. And because of that, and because you're basing it on what I like to call the line, it still gets a thumbs down. This movie was god awful. Why did you make me watch this? If this movie was an hour and 30 minutes, it probably would have got a thumbs up. I'm going to be real with you, James. It probably would have got a thumbs up. But it was 2 hours and 4 minutes.
Chris
and you have done that yourself.
Have colluded together to take my championship title.
E also gave it a thumbs down. Nobody gave a thumbs up but you. Okay. And if Rashad was here, I can't wait. The next, thank God.
And she said she watched this movie a gajillion times.
As did you.
I'm past it. I've surpassed it. We're done with it. We don't need it. We don't need it anymore. We're good.
Certain things don't grow. Ask Vic about those Police Academy movies. We didn't give them, a lot of them when they had to go. You know what I mean?
So I was watching all those Police Academy movies.
Oh, well, that's why you dipped out on us. I remember now. It sets us back a whole decade. Listen, guys, thank y'all for being here. We did 80s last month. Make sure you guys go watch those movies. Go vote on the Instagram because somebody thinks he won, which I think he wins the 80s, but I know it's hard to go against E.T. Also, make sure you check out all the shows on Unpopular Review. We have the award show coming up, so hopefully before the year's over. And then also check out for all the Power Universe fans out there. My wife and I are back by popular demand. The husband and wife review show. We did Power Kanan season 3, episode 1. Episode 2 drops at midnight. We'll check y'all back next Wednesday for that. What we got next week? House party. We got wrestling. I mean, good gosh darn. Make sure you guys comment below. Let us know how you think about this movie and vote also for this.
And yeah, vote for the 80s movie is about to close on the Instagram. And we also have this movie coming up.
Good morning, it's great.
Go ahead. Take us home, Mike.
Is it better than the Batman? No one thinks so except for James. So with that being said, we are out of here, y'all. Peace.